Tonight on Huckabee, Trent Lott on America's Politics of Anger, Defeating Dementia by Dr. Richard Berman, and the legendary Restless Heart performs. That's Trey Corley in the Music City Connection. And I'm your announcer, Keith Bilbrey. And now, here's Mike Huckabee!
Thank you very much. How delighted we are to have you here on this Memorial Day weekend, and thank you for joining us. Well, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. Now, for some, it's the start of the summer vacation season, or an extended weekend for barbecue, or a trip to the beach or lake. But if Americans forget the purpose for the day, then God forgive us. Our freedom and privileges to live in a country where the people rule comes at a very high price of service, suffering, and ultimately sacrifice. Men and women put on uniforms, and they train to do things they never imagined they were capable of. And they're sometimes sent to places halfway around the world whose names they can't pronounce, all to ensure that the fight for our freedom is kept worlds away instead of in our streets and communities. On Memorial Day, we set aside a day to reflect and remember those who gave their lives for us. These are the heroes who never spent another day at the beach or at a barbecue. They didn't walk their daughters down the aisle at a wedding. They never finished college or made a career or got to enjoy decades of birthdays and Christmas holidays with family and friends. Hopefully, they're thought of more than just from the occasional visit from a family member at the cemetery. Now, we don't have a draft into the military anymore. That ended 6 months before my 18th birthday. Vietnam was winding down, and in 1973, the military was starting to get people out instead of getting them in. I was in ROTC my freshman year of college, but after a semester, the colonel in charge of the program looked at my incredibly flat feet, and he told me, "Don't waste my time or your money for the second semester because the Army just flat didn't want me, and frankly, they wouldn't have me." Honestly, it was about the most profound rejection I experienced. That is until I ran for president in 2016 and became one of Donald Trump's casualties. Now, had I been born 6 months earlier, or had the war not finally come to an end, I might have missed having the joy of holding 6 grandkids and messing them up with my indulgences. I will admit that I've always felt a little guilty that my country didn't need me, or apparently didn't want me in uniform. And it's maybe why I feel just profoundly duty-bound to pay attention to Veterans Day, but especially to Memorial Day. My wife and I always try to attend a Memorial Day event to honor our military. This week, we're going to an East Texas camp where Gold Star families are being honored by a group called America's Mighty Warriors, started by Debbie Lee, whose son Mark was the first Navy SEAL killed in action in Iraq on August the 2nd of 2006. He stepped in the line of fire to allow his teammates the opportunity to rescue a wounded fellow SEAL. Debbie Lee's tribute to her son is a living reminder that it's not just the servicemen and women who pay a price, but their families as well. I hope you can enjoy the long weekend. And there's nothing wrong with a day at the beach or the lake or the pool or grilling burgers or pork ribs. But if we indulge ourselves a holiday and we don't pause and pay tribute to those who gave it to us, then I'm going to say it again. May God forgive us. To our veterans, I just want to say thanks. I owe you my next breath of free air. Thank you. Well, moments before this show, I spoke with Dan Bongino, a distinguished former agent of the U.S. Secret Service who served under President George W. Bush and President Barack Obama. Dan is now a noted guest on international security and political strategy, and he's also the host of the Dan Bongino podcast. Here's his thoughts on the abuse of power in the Department of Justice and FBI that have been, well, let's just say quite a bit in the headlines. Dan, we have heard so much about Russian interference. It now begins to look like that the real interference may have come from our own government agencies. What's your take on that?
Well, Governor, not only was there Russian interference, the Russian interference was legitimate. It was just legitimate on the Democrat side. We now know from the House investigation that Christopher Steele and some of the other surrogates working for Fusion GPS got some of this fake information about Donald Trump, wait for it, from Russia and Russian-connected intelligence sources. So let's be clear on this. The Russian collusion is real, but it's real on the Democrat side. Now, the problem with this entire Mueller probe is I believe at this point it's become a smokescreen to really hide what happened in Spygate. There is no Russian collusion on the Trump side. It's a myth. It's a fairy tale.
But you were in law enforcement for a long time. How shocked are you that agencies at the highest level, Department of Justice, FBI, were involved in what appears to be a direct attempt not only to influence the election, but after the election to cover their tracks?
I tell you this with a pure heart. If this would have happened to Barack Obama, God forbid, under a George Bush administration, I would be equally as outraged. You know, Governor, when you have the awesome power of the federal government in your hands, as I did as a federal agent, that's not hyperbolic. The power to take freedom as a federal agent and, God forbid, someone's life is an awesome power. That is an awesome power. But it's a frightening power, too. I became a libertarian leading conservative after my time in law enforcement because I fear what the government can do to people. The fact that liberals aren't speaking out against this is outrageous. This was an obvious a breach of protocol, a breach of the law with the leaking, and a breach of everything the constitutional republic stands for at this point.
There should have been some attempt, it would appear, to have told then candidate Donald Trump that there might be people in his campaign who had been having conversations with Russian agents, with people who were nefarious in their dealings. They knew that they could have told him. They did not. You have to help me understand, why didn't they and shouldn't they have done that?
The reason is they didn't see the hiring of Carter Page and George Papadopoulos as threats. This is important. They saw that hiring as opportunities, as an opportunity to pry into the Trump campaign, to spy on them, and to use the information gained for both tactical political advantage for the Clintons and as a way to go after Donald Trump later in the event they lost the election. And you bring up a great point, right? Why not just approach the Trump campaign if you were suspicious about Carter Page and say, hey, listen, we're really worried about Russian influence in the election, and this guy you have in your campaign could be a potential Russian spy. That didn't happen. And Governor, what makes it even worse, the FBI had already worked with Carter Page. They used him as a source in the Buryakov case to do what? To prosecute a Russian spy. So he was good enough to catch a Russian spy, but he wasn't good enough to warn the Trump campaign about later? It makes absolutely no sense.
You've worked with a lot of federal investigators from your Secret Service career, but also people in the FBI and other federal agencies. How much confidence do you have in the Mueller team to play this straight, to actually just look at the facts, as Jack Webb would say in Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts? How confident are you that that's what they're going to do and nothing but that?
Zero? Less than zero? Is there, you know, what is it? The very concept of zero was difficult to understand for some of our early. I have none. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't just throw these things out there. Governor, don't you think it's awfully odd that two of the lead investigators in the Mueller case, right? Jeannie Rhee and Aaron Zebley, both represented people at the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton orbit. One of them represented someone knee-deep in the email scandal. Those are two of Mueller's lead investigators. Let me throw something else out at you, too. A source in the Mueller campaign being used to prosecute Trump and the Trump team here is being represented by Obama's former White House lawyer. I have zero faith in this team at all. The conflicts are deep. Well, I'll throw one more at you. The woman who took John Brennan's place at the White House as the Homeland Security advisor, who was in the Obama White House as Spygate was happening, was Bob Mueller's old chief of staff. The conflicts are too deep. I have zero faith in this team. Bob Mueller needs to go. He should have been fired a long time ago, but he has too many conflicts to conduct an honest investigation.
Well, Dan, one thing I never have to worry about is will you shoot straight with me? And you certainly have tonight. It's why I love to visit with you.
Never been an issue.
Thank you so much. Great to have you here. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for being with us. Well, Dan knows that there are foxes in the Washington hen house, and they carry a badge. Let's just hope they can be caught and prosecuted for serious abuse of power and partisan misdeeds. I hope you'll also check out Dan Bongino's podcast. He takes on the latest issues and breaks through the political rhetoric to get right to the straight heart of the truth. Just head to Bongino.com. You can listen into the podcast. Now, we've got former Majority Leader Trent Lott coming up next. He's going to share the secret of how our fractured Congress can find a way to work together. So, Keith, let us know what else we have on for tonight.
Oh, I would love to. Rick Roberts has lots of laughs for us tonight. And later, one of country music's greatest bands, Restless Heart, performs. Then Dr. Richard Herman talks about defeating dementia. It's all coming up on Huckabee.
Oh, yeah, love that Trey Coley and the Music City Connection. By the way, I hope you'll drop by MikeHuckabee.com and read my message to frustrated readers, furious FBI agents, and Rudy Giuliani. Oh, you're going to discover why it is so hard to get rid of infestations in your home and your government when they're not mere pests, but federal agents and appointees. If only RAID could come in national scandal size. And there's a lot more of my analysis of the news there every single day, so drop by. I promise there are no embedded agents waiting to spy on you. At least, not that I know of. Also, be sure to follow me on social media at GovMikeHuckabee for breaking fun on the wackiness in Washington. All right, Trey, you've got a very unique hat that you're wearing tonight in honor of America's military.
I do, sir. But it is pretty cool that we live in a nation where men stand up to really just give us freedom. And so we just thank you for everything that you do and appreciate you. And this hat's just kind of a cool little side of it tonight to remind us about Memorial Day.
We salute our veterans, and I want to say thanks to Trey and thanks to all of our viewers for sending in that very unique hat. Well, recently I spoke with former Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott, who served in the Senate when independent counsel Ken Starr was investigating President Clinton, and as well through his impeachment of President Clinton. Now, despite a rancorous and partisan environment, the two parties actually were able to get some things done in Congress. So I asked him, how in the world did it happen?
You know, I really worked hard at talking to people on both sides of the aisle and, frankly, talking to Bill Clinton. I voted for all 3 articles of impeachment to remove him on a Friday. We did not get the necessary votes because it took a supermajority to remove him. But then on Thursday of the following week, President Bill Clinton called me. I took the call, not knowing for sure what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about a bill, and I don't remember what the bill was, and it wasn't that significant a bill, but he wanted to talk about could we get it moving. And of course I said, Mr. President, we'll take a look at it and see what we can do. He never mentioned that we had just had the impeachment trial of William Jefferson Clinton. But I do think that a lot of it is civility and keeping your word, communicating. That's such an important part of leadership. And one of the most important tools of leadership is your ears. You got to listen. And now it just seems like our friends in the Congress, they cannot find a way to move the ball forward. But you got to have a message, you got to have a positive agenda, and you got to be willing to take some risks to do some good things for the country.
When I watch the attempts to discredit Donald Trump today by the Democrats, they can't find anything that he does. Even things they voted for, like moving the embassy. They were all for it until he did it. Then they're against it and think it's a terrible idea. Do you think that's ultimately empowering the president and giving him strength rather than taking it from him?
In a way, I do. The American people resent the bias in the media. And I've never seen the media as biased. You know, I took journalism in high school. I know the difference between an editorial, an opinion, and a news article. Our news media have lost sight of that. And it's just, you know, it's never, no, we're not going to do anything. And a lot of things really should not be that difficult. The Senate could not pass the Coast Guard bill. We used to pass the Coast Guard bill on a voice vote and wrap up at the end of the day. They can't seem to get anything going on infrastructure. And I must say that the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, He slow walks and blocks everything.
Would you support the notion of getting rid of the filibuster rule?
Frankly, I'm over it. Times change. People say, well, it's historically, they've always had the filibuster. You know, go back. Filibusters didn't really kick in until the early part of the 1900s. And we didn't even have a majority leader in the Senate until the 1900s. So I do think it's being abused. I think we need reforms on a lot of fronts. I do think it's time that they take a serious look at rolling back the 60 vote requirement for everything that happens. There may be some areas where they might decide we need to keep it, but I think we need fundamental reforms in the Senate, and we need fundamental reform, particularly on the budget process. Appropriations bills. Some people say, well, if you go to only 50 votes, if the Democrats take back over, they'll spend everything in the government. Look, it's the people's choice. I hope the people won't do that. But to not be able to pass the annual funding of the government is so irresponsible.
Trent, you're one of the few people who has ever gone through almost every stage of House leadership and then Senate leadership and lived to tell about it. So if you had the opportunity to sit down with Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell and say, guys, here's what I would recommend that you think about. Give me the 30-second version of your advice to them.
The answer is one simple word, Governor, and that is leadership. Just a few good men or women that would say, we're not going to continue the way we're doing things in Washington. We're going to change this atmosphere. We're going to get some things done for our country. So, it's never easy in the Senate just because of the numbers and all of the rules, but it's as muscle-bound and ineffective right now as I've ever seen.
Well,
I mean, they're arguing right now over whether or not they can even get an FAA bill, Federal Aviation Administration. It's not that complicated.
I mean, that's the thing.
And we need it for safety.
Exactly. But, you and Daschle you were able to get things done. You communicated, and it wasn't like that, you were on the same side, but I think both of you understand.
Well, look, we did things to respect each other. When he had a real problem, he'd come into our office and say, look, this is really getting to be an issue for me. Or sometime when I was a majority leader and had the votes, I'd overplay my hand and actually get a little mean to him. And when I realized that I had probably gone too far, I'd go to his office, sit down and say, hey, Tom, I'm sorry. I went too far on that. Let's see if we can't work that out and get a good result. When we started, Tom and I weren't friends. And then we went through the 50-50 Senate, the impeachment trial, and all the difficult things we had to deal with, and it came out the backside of it as personal friends.
That speaks well of both of you. Senator Trent Lott, great to talk to you. My best to Trish, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
All right.
Senator Trent Lott once said, the vision of a nation is formed from many different peoples, bound together by a common love of freedom that was staked out long before our lifetimes. Let's hope that love can overcome differences between political parties and maybe help move America forward for everyone. We certainly need that kind of leadership again. All right, Keith, I know we've got more left for these great folks, so tell us, what else is coming up?
Well, I would love to. Later in the show, headlines you may have missed. And comedian Rick Roberts is here tonight. But first, one of country music's greatest bands, Restless Heart, performs on Huckabee.
Well, in honor of our fallen military, we ask our audience members to sign and place a memorial dog tag to remember any loved ones or maybe friends that they had who were lost. We honor all those who gave their yesterdays so we could have our todays. We will never forget that this is only the land of the free because they were brave. Well, my next guest started making music over 35 years ago. They have won countless awards, and they've charted over 25 songs, including 6 consecutive #1 hits. Here to perform now are Larry Stewart, Dave Ennis, Paul Gregg, John Dietrich, and Greg Jennings. Make welcome, please, Restless Heart. It is so great having you guys here. Thank you very much. And I want to start with you, Larry, because 35 years is a long time to be together in the music business. Did you think it was going to last this long when you guys got started?
Oh, my goodness, no. We didn't have a chance, especially according to the critics, you know, when we came out, because we were...
Aren't you glad critics are so often wrong?
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, they were wrong here, so yes, we're celebrating 35 years this year.
It's a good thing. I want to tell you, you guys are terrific, and I can understand why you've made it for 35 years, and I hope you have 35 more, because when you have music that is as tight and together as yours, the reason the fans keep loving you, keep coming out to see you, is because you give it everything you got every time you're on the stage, and it shows. And it's just a delight to have you guys here. I want to say thank you very much for coming. And I want to say to our audience, be sure to see Restless Heart's 35th anniversary tour. You can get all the concert dates. Visit their website at restlessheartband.com. And you also ought to be visiting your favorite online music retailer, whatever that is. Purchase a copy of Restless Heart's great music. There's a bunch of it, but you need to buy it all. I mean, they need the help right now, so buy all of it.
Man, I'm liking you more and more.
I knew you would. And also, Restless Heart's going to be back with us later in the show, so you do not want to miss it. Keith, why don't you tell us what we have coming up next in the show?
Well, I would love to after the break. Mike digs into this week's headlines you may have missed. Then find out how to defeat dementia from Dr. Richard Furman on Huckabee.
And welcome back. We have some very big news for Huckabee fans who are driving distance from the Ozarks. The Huckabee Show is coming to Branson, Missouri. We'll be shooting 2 episodes on June the 12th. Keith, Trey, our entire band, all going to show up and set up shop at Silver Dollar City in their 700-seat opera house. Now, if you've never been to Silver Dollar City, it is one of the premier theme parks in the nation. My family loves the place, especially our grandkids. And no place captures the American values and history quite like it. My own son-in-law, after being with us on a family trip to Branson, said that Branson is like Vegas for Christians. I love that. Our guest on June 12th will include Tony Orlando, the Shanghai Acrobats, Irish tenor Anthony Kearns, the Haygood family, country legend Mo Bandy, and many, many more. It's going to be wonderful. Or as Donald Trump would say, huge. Now, the Huckabee Show is free, but you do need to purchase a day admission to the park. You can find out all of the details at silverdollarcity.com/Huckabee. That's silverdollarcity.com/Huckabee. I hope you'll join us on June the 12th, because it's going to be great, great fun. Now, it has been a busy week in the news cycle. We want to catch up on a couple of stories that may not have gotten on your radar. This is the infamous segment that we like to call In Case You Missed It. That's right, we read the news so you don't have to. All right, President Trump sent a Dear Kim letter to the world's most notable nuclear-powered dictator, Kim Jong-un. While he didn't kill their budding relationship, it definitely put the brakes on their first summit date. The president noted that he would decline the Singapore summit meeting at this time based on Kim Jong-un's tremendous anger and open hostility towards America, but especially the vice president and security advisor John Bolton. President Trump acknowledged the positive dialogue that had taken place before the angry outburst from North Korea, and the president thanked him for the release of 3 American hostages, recognizing it as a beautiful gesture. So it looks like table for none on June the 12th at what could have been a historic summit for the safety and security of the world. But President Trump encouraged Kim Jong-un to write or give him a call if he has a change of heart. I sure hope dear leader of the Hermit Kingdom realizes that President Trump will deal, but he won't be played a chump. Not on your life. Now, from our You Wish You Missed It file, self-described flamboyant writer and cool dad Rob Rousseau posted on Twitter that he'd rather have his daughter date a member of the murderous MS-13 gang than a Republican. He really said that. Pretty sure he's a provocateur, as our producers checked the dating sites, ms13.com and OkCupid Killer. Didn't have any results for his daughter, thank God. But I'm sure in reality, Mr. Rousseau loves her too much to encourage her to get out on the dating scene with someone whose motto is kill, rape, control. Rob Rousseau's daughter, trust me, you can do better than this. You didn't get to pick your dad, and it appears he's a loon. But you can at least choose who you date. And darling, you can do better than dating the monsters of MS-13, I'm pretty sure. And also, Gina Haspel became the director of the CIA this week. She's the first woman ever to head the agency. It is an amazing triumph for women that's been utterly rejected by the feminist movement. Feminist writer Jessica Valenti declared, anyone who thinks Gina Haspel is a win for women's empowerment doesn't understand there's a huge difference between being a feminist and being a woman who benefited from feminism, whatever that's supposed to mean. And the New York Times presented the narrative that said she was so qualified it could ruin her appointment. Seriously? Well, I bet Ms. Valenti wouldn't have said that if President Obama had nominated Gina Haspel. And I'll bet the New York Times would have celebrated her historical moment in American government. To the left and to the media, but then again I repeat myself, only liberal women who are allowed to be heroes for their gender, it appears to be. Gina Haspel's appointment is historic, and it's not just for her gender, but it's for having come up through the ranks of the intel community instead of her appointment being merely a political payoff. Here's the real question. Did she shatter the glass ceiling so hard in Washington that all the liberal feminists got sliced to pieces in the process? Oh, here's the final story. Don't tell Al Gore, but NASA data shows that global temperatures have actually dropped the past 2 years. As a matter of fact, it's the biggest global temperature drop in the past 100 years. The mainstream media has completely ignored this scientific research. But they have found time to report on people who want to carve President Trump's face into a glacier to prove that climate change is happening. Well, if I were them, I wouldn't rush. Sounds like they're going to have lots more time. So does NASA's data make them global warming deniers? Probably not. But those global cooling facts certainly are a really inconvenient truth. That is for sure. Well, that's all the catching up we can stand this week. But until next time, remember the old saying that if you don't read the news, you're uninformed. If you do read the news, you are misinformed. All right, my next guest is a vascular surgeon. He's an author and co-founder of World Medical Mission, the medical arm of Samaritan's Purse. After watching his mother-in-law suffer through Alzheimer's disease, he threw himself into researching methods that we can all use to lower our risk of contracting this devastating disease. He's now put all of that priceless information into a must-read book, Defeating Dementia. Please welcome Dr. Richard Furman. Dr. Furman, it is great having you here. Every family in America has been touched in some way by the issues of dementia, more specifically Alzheimer's disease, whether it's a mother, father, uncle, aunt, somebody in their family, I'm sure, has dealt with it. So what is defeating dementia all about?
One day I read one article out of the Journal of the American Medical Association, which opened my eyes, which I hope opens the readers' eyes, that they took 1,800 people and followed them for 14 years to see who developed Alzheimer's, who didn't, and then to see, well, why? Well, they found out that the ones that ate the worst foods, the saturated fats, the red meat, the cheese, the butter, the cream, fried foods, all of that, they were 40% more likely to get Alzheimer's than the ones who ate properly, which we discussed in the book. What do you eat, what do you not eat? Then in that 1,800 people group, there was a group that exercised. 48% were less likely to get Alzheimer's than ones who didn't exercise. That's two of the problems, the food and the exercising, but the weight was huge. They went back to midlife, the ones who were overweight kept that way were twice as likely to get Alzheimer's. The ones who were obese was 3 times as likely.
But in your book, you talk about 3 stages of Alzheimer's disease. What are those 3 stages?
All right. The scary part about it is stage 1. There's one protein they found that this is being deposited 20 years before symptoms. So that's stage 1. You don't even know that you're developing it. And the scary part about it is the numbers that people, Americans aged 55 to 60, that 1/3 of them have this protein being laid down in the brain, no symptoms. Stage 2 is from the time you start having symptoms until you become dependent on someone else during your everyday life. The scary numbers on that, 10 to 20% of Americans age 65 have the symptoms of Alzheimer's. That rises to 50% when you're 85. And of course, stage 3 is from the time you become dependent on someone to the wheelchair to being bedridden. And I tell you, Governor, that's life is gone long before death arrives.
And it's such a devastating disease. Of all the things I think I've ever seen, nothing is quite so painful to watch in the life of a person. You talk about in your book, Defeating Dementia, 3 lifestyle paths that you say can really help a person prevent or avoid Alzheimer's. Discuss, what are those?
These are called modifiable risk factors. The American Association says that half of Alzheimer's is preventable, and 87% of people who have Alzheimer's have at least one of these modifiable risk factors. And that's, again, that's the exercise, the food, and the weight. To give you a few numbers out of the medical literature, the ones, they took the top 10%, the ones that exercise the most, the bottom 10%, the ones that exercise the least. The ones that exercise the least were twice as likely to get Alzheimer's. And you say, well, I can't jog, I can't run. So they did a study on walking, multiple studies on walking, which surprised me, but the ones who walked 30 minutes a day, 5 to 6 days a week, versus the ones who were sedentary had 60% less likelihood of getting Alzheimer's. So that's the exercise part of it.
So it's not the most complicated thing in the world to be able to do. You go through this in great detail in the book, and I think it's going to be a tremendous help to so many families out there. But I hope people read it not when they're 65 or 85, but when they're 25, and they can maybe avoid the pathway.
Exactly.
Great to have you here, and I want to say thanks for writing the book and giving real simple, practical help to understand the disease, but more importantly, to try to deal with it. And that's why I think you've done a great service to people. You can find this book, Defeating Dementia, at your favorite bookseller. You can also get the book and a lot more free advice on living a long, healthy life at Dr. Richard Furman's website. It's richardfurman.com. That's richardfurman.com. I hope you'll get this book for you, for your family, and it may be a lifesaver, literally. All right, Keith, tell us what we have coming up.
Well, coming up next, our very own comedian, Rick Roberts, takes to the stage. He's got a Barney Fife impression that will rock your Mayberry. Then Restless Heart returns with another hit, right here on Huckabee.
For over 40 years, Samaritan's Purse has worked in Jesus' name to bring aid to the world's poor, sick, and suffering. If you've got a heart to make all those things possible to people in need, I hope you'll contact Samaritan's Purse by phone or maybe through their website. And may God bless you for caring and acting in His name. Our next guest is one of the top clean comedians in all the nation. He's also part of the Huckabee team. He entertains our live audiences right here in the theater before the show. Please welcome Mr. Rick Roberts.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you guys tonight, and I'm a little extra excited because on the way over, my wife told me we just sent in our final house payment, so I wanted to say that out loud and share it with some folks out there. Thank you. I'm really excited. It's not paid off. That's just the final payment we intend to send in. It was adjustable, so we made it 0 more payments. And Now I've got financial peace, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, I love living here in Nashville. You see a lot of celebrities around town, not just country music stars, but I actually did just see Al Gore a couple of days ago at the car wash, of all places. You'd think he'd have a better job now after serving as the VP and all that. He was using a lot of extra water, too. I think that was bad for the environment, and he should have probably held back a little bit. But I do love living here. I got a little family. I started kind of late in life with that. I'm 49 years old with a 12-year-old boy and a 5-year-old baby girl. Thank you for being honest. Nobody claps, just like, I'm gonna put him in my prayer group right now. It's a little bit of work, and if that's not enough, recently my wife has started talking about adoption. I'm like, honey, slow down. I don't think anybody is gonna take these kids off our hands at this point. You go, put them on Craigslist, see if you get a nibble. I don't know how it works. Start with that little one, I barely know her anyway. And I wouldn't trade him for nothing, but I'm glad some things are behind us. Diaper changing, I never liked that. Remember the last time I had to change my little baby girl, we're out at the mall, and I had to use one of those plastic koala bear Ebola dispensers. You ever seen those? How'd that get past R&D? That's my first question. But I didn't know what to do, so I read the safety sticker. That's a comedy show by itself. It says right on there, weight not to exceed 150 pounds. That's a big old baby right there, ain't it? I'm 145, that baby could take me out. You want to change what? 145, that is a rib-eating, bib-wearing, that's a state fair baby is what that is, ain't it? Don't put her next to the butter sculpture of Garth Brooks, she might eat it. I mean, I know childhood obesity can be an issue in our country, but if your infant is pushing $1.50, put down the sweet tea and get out of the food court. Give her a shot, all right? They do grow up fast. I love my 12-year-old. I wasn't prepared for how many things he says per day. And sometimes, if I'm honest, he'll creep me out, you know? One night I'm tucking him into bed. I'm like, hey, buddy, hope you have sweet dreams. He looks up and goes, I hope you're still breathing when I wake up in the morning. I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you know that I don't know? Mama switching my pills when I'm gone? Something's going on here. Yeah, I was awake the next morning. I didn't sleep a wink. Sometimes they say funny stuff, but you can't laugh because it's not the right kind of funny. Like one night we're brushing our teeth before we go to bed, and he's looking in the mirror at him for a while. Then he looks over at me, then back at him, then back at me. I said, what's the matter, bud? He said, Papa, I just noticed me and you, we kind of look alike. I'm like, yeah, what do you think about that? He goes, what are you gonna do? Well, you're probably not gonna go to prom. That's one thing you're not gonna do. And you don't need your nightlight. You're 12. I'm gonna take that from you. I'm gonna close your door all the way. Hope you're still breathing when I wake up in the morning. Yeah, he's a good kid. I got a great wife. I've learned a lot over the years of being married, 15 years. Learned this recently. She wants me to communicate, but she does not want me to talk. I'm like, what, can't I even respond to that? I'm gonna say something. I hope you don't hear it. But she's great, takes care of the kids when I'm traveling, and lucky for me, I haven't had to discipline the children too much, and that's a good thing for both of us because when I get angry, my voice gets higher, and it doesn't sound authoritative. It sounds more like Bernard Milton Fife from the Andy Griffith Show. It's hard to spank them when they're laughing. I'm like, hey, stop doing that. Nip it in the bud. What do you think you're doing there, buddy? You better put that down. Hey, thank you guys very much for putting up with me. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
That was great, Rick.
That was fun.
Who doesn't love Barney Fife, for heaven's sakes?
Oh, best show ever. Well, besides this one.
Good recovery. Very good. You're good. You're good.
I'm learning.
How'd you choose comedy?
You know, long story short, I went to a place to play guitar one night. It was listed as an open stage in the newspaper. I didn't know till after I got done playing 3 songs that it was a comedy open stage. I had no idea. I'm sitting there playing Bridge Over Troubled Water. I'm like, well, they didn't like that because it's too slow. How about Born to Be Wild? Nothing. And I just look at the crowd. I'm like, what do y'all want to hear? And like, how about something funny? And so I played a little funny song I wrote in college. Then the way off stage, the MC said, tonight's a comedy competition. You probably came in last. But I went back week after week to see what it was all about, and I just got hooked.
Wow. Now you're playing all over the country, and one of the things that I admire, you're a part of a group called the Christian Comedy Association, which is made up of people like yourself who are believers, but you want to make sure that people laugh, whether it's a corporate audience. It's not just that you're playing to churches, you do that, but you're playing to all kinds of venues, but your comedy doesn't embarrass people or insult people. It's clean, it's wholesome, but it's still funny, as our audience would certainly attest to tonight.
Yeah, I think the goal, well, yeah. Thank you. You know, one of the best pieces of comedy advice I got when I first started was an old veteran comic who said, you know, when the lights are on you and the audience is dark, you might see a dirty comic getting really big laughs, and it sounds like the whole crowd's laughing, but if you look out there, it's a half, maybe a third of the crowd. He said, our job is to entertain everybody in the audience. And being a Christian, that went hand in hand with my belief system anyway. So it was just a nice reaffirmation of, you know, clean is the way to go for me.
And there's a big conference and showcase coming up for clean comedians. Tell us about it.
Yes, if you're in the Nashville area or you wanted to come here and check out Nashville, come on June 3rd, that's a Sunday, at Oasis Church. We're gonna have a huge comedy showcase with some of our best and up-and-coming Christian comedians. I think there's 11 comics on the bill, maybe 12. You get a great sample of all the different types of messages along with the ministry and the comedy that we offer in the CCA.
How do they get information about that?
Well, you can check out ChristianComedyAssociation.com, and on the homepage there'll be links to get tickets and find out more about the conference.
Well, I hope people go. You know, we need more laughter in our world. It's one of the reasons we like to have comedians on the show. The Bible says laughter is good medicine,
sure
that
is.
a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a bitter spirit dries up the bones. We got a lot of folks who have dried up bones because they don't laugh.
Those dry bones.
Let me just tell you, folks, if you want to see Rick in person, or maybe you'd like to book him for an event in your community, you can do it safely and not be embarrassed. Go to rickroberts.com. Remember, Rick is spelled R-I-K, rickroberts.com for details. And like Rick said, if you're in Nashville on June the 3rd, check out an incredible lineup of 11 comedians performing that evening at 7 p.m. Get tickets at ChristianComedyAssociation.com. ChristianComedyAssociation.com. Hey, Keith, what do you think about Barney Fife maybe telling us what's coming up?
Well, Mike, I know better than to trouble one of Mayberry's finest. So, Officer Fife, what's on the agenda?
Well, coming up next, Restless Heart performs their big hit, Big Dreams in a Small Town. And believe me, there's no smaller town than Mayberry. Just ask my sweetie, Thelma Lou. But not until we come right back here on Huckabee.
Back to sing their great hit, Big Dreams in a Small Town. Here again, Restless Heart.
Big dreams in a small town, 18 and glory bound. Nothing here to tie us down. Big dreams in a small town. Rolling down a dusty road in my daddy's Ford. I wish that I could feel that way again. I remember those summer nights on the brink of love. Yes, I do. You and I made more than plans back then. Hey. Big dreams in a small town, 18 and glory bound. Nothing here to tie us down. Big dreams in a small town. We were gonna try and set the world on fire, yeah. We were gonna make it all come true. We used to say that we couldn't wait to leave this town. That was something we were born to do. Yeah, yeah. Guess it's time to settle down. Don't you like the way it sounds? You and me in a small town. Big dreams in a small town. Big dreams in any old American town. Oh, yeah. Governor Mike Huckabee on bass guitar, y'all. How about a big hand?
Well, thank you, guys. And our thanks to Dan Bongino, Trent Lott, Rick Roberts, Dr. Richard Furman, and these very talented, wonderful gentlemen, Restless Heart. Be sure to join us next week. We're going to be grooving with the Rascals, Felix Cavalier. We'll be celebrating the American Chopper with custom bike creator Paul Tuttle Jr. Until then, good night. God bless. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. God bless you, everybody.